So for the past year, the Kill Tony show has been absolutely blowing up and is now doing similar numbers as some of the biggest comedy podcasts out there, like Theo Von's, Bad Friends, and even YMH Studios. And for the past 5 months, every single episode that they put out has been consistently getting over 1 million views each, which is absolutely insane. And because of the nature of the show and the fact that it's done in front of a live audience, it can catch even some of the most seasoned comics off guard, and they can end up exposing themselves.
Are in this bucket.
No. They thought they were signing up to have abortions in Texas. That's actually.
We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Oh, you guys.
Abortions are half fun. The front half's pretty fun, I hear.
Yeah.
The second half's a bummer.
Yeah.
Are these mics not on? What the? That was a funny
A
joke.
little bit low.
You know, it's just such an awkward ride home. You know, what do you talk about?
You pay for an Uber? They made me take the train.
Now, that was episode 602 with Whitney Cummings, Bert Kreischer, and Jim Norton. And what you just saw was the beginning of a very rough episode for both Whitney Cummings and Bert Kreischer. And although there's still a debate of who was the worst Kill Tony guest of all time, from drunk Joe Rogan, Donnell Rawlings, Punky Johnson, and Whitney Cummings, what makes the Whitney Cummings and Bert Kreischer one so interesting to me is the fact that you can see the clear difference between a comic like Jim Norton and a comedian, an LA comedian or a Rogan Sphere comedian like Whitney or Bert Kreischer. And not in terms of who's funnier, but you could simply tell who's there to try and make people laugh and crack some jokes, and who is there to try and make the entire show about themselves.
So guys get to just up their shit and they still get laughs?
Yes.
I love Texas. I'm
Yes,
moving
we do.
here.
Hashtag sexism.
Whitney, you know this is still America, right? Like, it's not that different than everywhere else. You're like, oh, men can talk here in Texas? That one is a special one. I know which one you're talking about. They have
And
their
what
own
do you do?
car wash, right?
What do you do at the grocery store?
I worked in the deli, so yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind that both Whitney and Bert have been on the Kill Tony show in the past, so there's really no excuse that, they weren't prepared or knew what the show was about, like maybe some other people might have. And it almost felt like if both of them thought that they were so big and famous that by them simply showing up to the show would be enough, and that they could just say anything and the crowd would love it, plus they were at the comedy mothership. But as soon as they started seeing the crowd's reaction and seeing that they were not laughing at the jokes and they started bombing, they definitely started to panic. And it wasn't until about 30 minutes into the show that Jim Norton actually showed everybody what the show was about. Because for the most part, Whitney and Bert Kreischer were making it all about themselves. Whitney Cummings was making jokes about how tough it is to be a woman in comedy.
Now, Hans, you talked about the Chinese a little bit, and you are Korean.
Wait, you're not even Chinese!
Yeah.
No, you're not allowed to do that. I made a show called Two Broke Girls, and there was a Chinese character on it, and the actor that auditioned was South Korean, and they called me racist.
Well, hey.
Can you please make a call and fix that?
Wait, put a nail in that coffin. I got a Korean. He said he was Chinese, and they called me racist. Go.
And Bert Kreischer was legit fake laughing so hard that it was just very noticeable. It was pretty wild. And instead of taking the L and taking the back seat and just chilling for the rest of the show and letting everybody, pitch in, they decided to make one of the best moments of the entire show all about themselves.
You look like some from Men in Black. You look like you'll be in there.
You look
You'll
like
be around the coffee machine.
You look like Lizzo dressed like Suge Knight for Halloween.
Oh my God. Chaos has ensued. The great Jim Norton is here, ladies and gentlemen. Holy.
That was a good one.
Wow.
This is going down.
I won't ever forget this moment. Me.
How fun.
Now, what Whitney and Bert Kreischer did, I guess, could now be considered the modern version of a spit take, because, it's clearly done on purpose and it's fake, but in this case, instead of helping out the joke and adding to the reaction, it kind of takes attention away from the moment, and all you can do is focus on the two comics that are running around shirtless on stage. Now, the rest of the show wasn't really any better. Whitney was all over the place, and Bert Kreischer kept bombing with some weird stories and was actually getting mad that the crowd wasn't getting his jokes.
Yeah.
Your beard is very like Periscope.
Periscope?
Am I the only one that watched?
What?
Never mind.
You talking about like?
Wow, I guess no one was on Periscope back in the day. Oh. You guys.
That app where...
Just because we have two different life experiences doesn't mean I'm wrong and you're right. But so I think that no one got the black thing.
Yeah.
So
And when it comes to Whitney and Bert Kreischer, it's kind of hard to make excuses for them, especially since Bert Kreischer does arenas and was technically one of the biggest touring comics last year. And Whitney Cummings, she's very successful at what she does, and has a lot of experience doing these type of shows, the live shows, the roasting, and all that stuff. Now, that doesn't mean they need to be the funniest person on the spot, but it should at least allow them to, not embarrass themselves in those types of situations. Now, the episode was still massive, getting nearly 2 million views in only 9 months. Now, to be fair, both of their performances were pretty entertaining, and, at least you could make fun of them. But at least it wasn't a complete mood killer like the time when Punky Johnson got way too serious after William Montgomery made a joke on stage.
I do have one thing to say. And it's all about the respect of the craft and the art. These are two people you need to know. So backing up saying, who the are you? I took that as disrespect. Not disrespect, but disrespect. Like, you need to know the people that came up before you, and that's great.
For sure. I swear to you, Punky, as it was leaving my lips, I just thought to myself, this is a horrible Punky sitting here.
These motherfuckers paved the way. So I want.
Okay, okay.
I didn't take offense.
Are you
to
mad?
it. No, I loved it.
Okay.
Well,
thank you for bringing it up. Thank you.
Right,
I apologize.
Bring it up.
I do it to everyone. So maybe I need to stop.
Yeah.
But I never go to the store. I'm kidding.
William Montgomery, ladies and gentlemen, find him on Cameo, the real deal.
Now, Punky Johnson is a well-known stand-up comic that has actually been part of the SNL cast for the past few years, which is funny because it seems like Punky doesn't really seem to like comedy shows, because keep in mind that she has been on the Kill Tony show the year before and had a similar reaction to William Montgomery back then. Now, back then, she was really not laughing at his jokes and made it a point that she wasn't having it. Now, fast forward to the most recent episode, Punky was actually laughing, and, like him or not, William has actually improved a lot for the past year, and his act now is pretty funny. And you could tell that she was on board. She was laughing, and she was having a good time until she felt that he disrespected the other two comics that were on the table sitting next to her. And look, obviously it's a comedy show. William Montgomery is doing a bit, so he's just joking. But even then, even if you want to argue that he is hiding behind the jokes, it wasn't even that bad. What he said to them, as the comics that they are and what they did for comedy, it wasn't really that bad of a joke. Sure, it wasn't the best improv, but it wasn't that offensive.
How did you get it wrapped up? How did you wrap them up? Back up.
Huh?
How'd you get them wrapped back up?
Do what?
How'd you wrap them back up? You put the notes in there, and how'd you
Could you
put
say that a little slower? I swear, I can't understand you. I swear.
Forget it. It don't matter.
Who the f*** are you? Why were you trying to give me advice on that shit, man? I have 500.
And what's really funny is that when Punky started to call out William, you could tell that he was starting to break character for a little bit. He was, starting to apologize for what he said and how he thought that it was wrong. But then when he started to realize that she was doing way too much, he went back on, he started doing his act again and completely destroyed. And once again, I think everybody, including Punky, knows that it's a joke. Obviously, it's a comedy show. But for some reason, she decided to make it real and take it serious, which is very strange and just another example of somebody that's trying to make it all about themselves. Because keep in mind that both Jim and Eddie did not care at all and didn't think it was offensive. Now, I was going to bring up Ric Flair, that episode where he walked out of the show, but I think the Ric Flair episode was a mix of both his faults and also Tony Hinchcliffe's fault because, yes, Rick was a bad guest, calling out Tony's show, essentially telling him to his face that he didn't like what he had going on, which is super messed up. But also, apparently, Tony never explained the whole concept of the show or what the show was about to Ric Flair, so he definitely wasn't ready for that and wasn't comfortable with the whole dynamic of the show. Plus, keep in mind that it was an episode with Mark Norman, Shane Gillis, Ari Shafir, and Luis J. Gomez, so it was just a wild episode for somebody like Ric Flair to be on. And you could also argue that he's an older man and he was completely wasted. However, when it comes to the actual worst guest in Kill Tony history, I think Donnell Rawlings takes it by far. Now, keep in mind that Donnell Rawlings is a legit stand-up comic, best known for being on the Chappelle Show. And, you know, he appears to be close with Dave Chappelle, even being on the Joe Rogan Experience with him a couple of times. Now, with that being said, you would think that a comic like him would be able to take some jokes and be mature about it, but instead, we got this.
Showing you love.
I love you, but I hate you, man.
You ain't gotta hate me. Beat it.
Because of the RZA shit. I'm kind of mad about
What
it.
is it?
Let me ask you this.
Well,
Huh?
Donnell
This is shit.
famously
All right, no,
interrupted
wait.
on a
All right.
podcast with the
Right.
RZA.
All right.
So
Guess what I did? And you might not understand this. I talked to the RZA. You know what? I will put it on this platform. That day, I had been on the road for 2 weeks, hadn't seen my son in 2 weeks. I was supposed to do Joe Rogan's podcast.
Typical.
I came in it. Let me tell you.
Sorry, I had to, because it's a comedy show.
I'll
and
tell you the
he's-
story. This is not comedy. This is what really happened.
I know.
So I did Joe Rogan podcast. Yo, let me tell you something. Play it.
Yeah.
I did Joe Rogan's podcast.
Do my podcast.
For 2 hours I did this podcast.
2 hours, can't shut up for shit.
And Joe Rogan said, and I don't even know how I'm going to get back into being funny again because hit bloop, bloop, bloops and all that type of shit on me.
I probably just ruined my comedy career tonight.
The reason why I know I'm a real motherfucker,
I'm sorry.
because I'm here tonight for a real mother. He tried to, I know what he wanted to do. Oh, yeah. I'm about to leave right now because...
no, you're not. Come
No,
on,
no,
Donnell.
no, I'm going to leave.
You made fun of his jeans.
I did. Who wouldn't make fun of them jeans?
Holy shit, this is really happening. All right, let's get right into it. By a show of hands, guys.
Now, this was only 2 years ago that it happened, and keep in mind that it wasn't the first time that he was on the show. He had been on the show previously, so once again, no excuse that he wasn't prepared or knew what the show was about. So the fact that he got so upset and was actually bothered by somebody calling out the fact that he interrupts so much is so wild, especially when right after he literally interrupted the entire show to give a very long speech about doing Rogan's podcast and then completely just walked out of the show. He left the show halfway through the show. Funny enough, he hasn't been back on the Kill Tony show, and I don't know if he will ever be on again. And keep in mind that although, yes, the show is mostly edited by the time that it hits YouTube, it is still filmed in front of a live audience, and not like a Tonight Show audience, a real audience, which, you know, makes it a challenge for some comedians. It's not that easy to do. For example, a while back when Joe Rogan was on the show with Freddie Gibbs and Brian Moses, Freddie Gibbs actually signed himself up to do 1 minute on the show, and it didn't go that well, which is a little bit weird because you would think that if somebody's up there with the comics on stage on that table, that they would have a way better minute prepared than somebody that just gets randomly called from that bucket. And I think because he started bombing and things didn't go his way, he decided to throw Joe Rogan under the bus and tried roasting him.
But the world is changing. Shit. Joe Rogan saying this shit.
It's been years.
Nah, that wasn't years. That was days.
Let it go.
He said every feeling looked like a monkey.
A lot of days. But years.
Listen, hey, Joe, let me tell you something. You lucky I got family in Philadelphia because they was coming here to up, man. I said, listen, I held all back on behalf of Joe. Y'all give me a round of applause.
Thank you, and please
I
tell
told
all your
I
friends.
told all
thank
niggas, I
you.
said, hey, Joe, I know he got Dave Chappelle and shit, but you know, Dave Chappelle ain't in the streets. His wife Asian and shit. Dave Chappelle ain't no gangster like me. I love
I appreciate
Dave.
that.
I know, white boy. You better appreciate it. I'm appreciate. Look, we got to talk because we got to work something out for that. We got the approval from the realest ever.
We talked about that today.
We got that. We go
Very
through
important.
all that, baby.
All right, listen, this is going to be on
Exactly.
Patreon on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Joe Rogan is about to give reparations.
Oh, my. Freddie, get back over here. Get back over here.
And you just don't know it.
Freddie, you did much more than your minute. How about a hand for Freddie Gibbs, everybody? Absolutely shredding. I like that.
Now, what's very interesting and funny about drunk Joe Rogan, unlike somebody like drunk Bert Kreischer or drunk Shane Gillis, is that you can actually tell when Rogan is completely blasted, and not necessarily in a bad way, but it's just very noticeable. At least with drunk Rogan, he can actually take a joke and then laugh along and just hang out with everybody else. And although he has made a lot of appearances that are pretty tough to watch, at least you get a version of Joe Rogan that is which is still relatable, because if you compare that to Joe Rogan's most recent appearance when he was on the Kill Tony show with Tom Segura, it was a night and day difference. On that most recent appearance, they were not saying much. They were basically whispering to each other, and it almost felt like if they thought they were too cool to make jokes and engage with the show. But there's also a chance that maybe Joe Rogan simply wanted to let Tony run the show because it was the 10th anniversary episode, and he didn't want to be the center of attention and do what he does every time he is on the Kill Tony show. But yeah, in conclusion, the reason why I think Daniel takes that top spot as the worst guest in Kill Tony history is simply because how serious and how emotional he was, and obviously his reaction to it, which was to walk out of the show. And even though, yes, Ric Flair did walk out of the show also, he is not a comedian like Donnell is, who, was on the Chappelle show and is friends with Dave Chappelle. And also, even though Bert Kreischer and Whitney both had a pretty embarrassing performance, at least they were still trying. And in fact, Whitney Cummings was trying a little bit too much, but it just wasn't their best performance. And when it comes to Punky, I guess at least you could argue that she gave William that legendary clip and that tagline. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Dislike if you didn't like the video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.